There's been a lot of misunderstanding around Roe v. Wade. There are two components to this development. One has everything to do with babies and reproductive rights, and one has nothing to do with that and everything to do with our system of governance and law. Regarding the second component, the overturning of Roe v. Wade does not in and of itself mean that people don't have access to abortion. It simply means that there is no constitutional right to abortion, and that the federal government does not have the right to supersede state legislation. This is called federalism, the idea that states are sovereign apart from a very limited scope of responsibilities that should be handled by the federal government. This is a very important property of our nation. When analyzing this second component, it's actually irrelevant what the content of the legislation is. All that matters is this something that's a constitutionally protected right, and should the federal government be able to dictate the law to the states? Regarding the first component, the actual content of the legislation and its potential impact, there are a lot of hateful, misleading, and dishonest arguments being made by both sides. It doesn't really matter what you believe spiritually or religiously. It doesn't really matter what you believe about exceptions for rape and incest. It goes like this. Humans exist. Most people believe that humans have inherent value. Because of this inherent value, we all tend to agree that murder is wrong in the overwhelming majority of circumstances. Women sometimes get pregnant, and this actually is where the disagreement begins and ends. Is an unborn baby a human life? The three options are: A, yes, in which case abortion is the intentional act of ending the life of another human being. B, no, not until they're born, in which case an abortion would be similar to removing cancerous cells or other medical procedures. C, no, not the entire time, in which case we have to define precisely when a fetus becomes a human life. The line between murder and not murder cannot be fuzzy. Given these three options, we are left with two potential outcomes, or two realities, only one of which can be true. Number one, unborn babies are not human beings, in which case we haven't been doing anything wrong. Number two, unborn babies are, for at least a part of the process, a human being, in which case we have been committing a horrific atrocity, the scale of which we have hardly seen in any of recorded history. That is the chasm between the two realities, and only one can be true. I suggest we all are very cautious in which reality we choose to perpetuate. There is one single reality, and it doesn't actually matter what we choose, we can be incorrect. Now, people have mentioned to me that the Constitution talks about securing the, quote, blessing of liberty, and asked me, how is it that we're protecting citizens' liberty if rights to certain medical procedures are stripped away? This is a really good argument, if an unborn baby is not a human life. If it is a human life, then its liberty also needs to be protected. Natural law suggests that your liberty ends where your actions infringe on the liberty of another. This is why murder is seen as wrong, but self-defense often isn't. And we can argue all day long about whether or not our system of baby making is a little bit insane. It kind of is. But no matter what we decide on that is the way that it works. So this argument, and all others that I've been able to perceive, come back to the same question. Is an unborn baby a human life? Babies have a heartbeat at 6 to 8 weeks. They quickly develop a brain that functions, eyes that can see, ears that can hear, they can respond to touch, and this is all months and months before the baby is born. To me, there's no way I can justify the idea that a baby is any less human than I, or any less deserving of life than I. I've made mistakes. Many, and bad ones at times. At least an unborn child has made no offense. They have a greater overall potential for ultimate good than I do because I've made a lot of my choices already. Rape and incest account for 1.5% of abortions. This means that the overwhelming majority of abortions is because two people chose to have sex. When a woman has sex, there's a chance she'll get pregnant. That's not religion, that's not government, that is science. If you're willing to partake in something that has biological consequences, you need to be prepared to responsibly handle those consequences. In fact, you can even intuit the significance of sex by looking at and analyzing the significance of its potential effects. Again, completely independent of religion or legislation. If you're an adult, you should be capable of not having kids until you want kids. How you get there is up to you, but it's not a difficult thing to avoid. In fact, it's pretty straightforward. The fact that people want to have sex freely and with less risk is the most asinine reason that I could come up with for justifying the death of another human being. Now, none of this is to demonize or condemn those that believe in the right to abortion or believe that an unborn baby isn't a human life. I don't believe that people who have had an abortion are bad or evil. I believe they have been misled and lied to. And there's no shame in admitting a belief was incorrect, because if that belief is incorrect, and we are committing an atrocity, the most important thing we can do is reverse course as quickly as possible. There is no need and no space for condemnation or shame. Bringing spiritual beliefs back into it for a moment, sin is a word that simply means to miss the mark. It means something that is derivative of our designed or created order. I believe almost all sin is equal. The point isn't that God wants to judge and punish us each for all of the things we've done according to some merit-based system. God says all of us have missed the mark, and that in order to be restored to our designed order, we have to have a relationship with Him to learn about His character and His purpose. If we refuse His invitation, the natural consequence is further derivation from our designed order, resulting in separation from God and His perfect love. This natural consequence, in the eternal context, is what's talked about as hell. As far as I understand it, no one's going to be thrown into a literal lake of fire because they had an abortion. However, if they refuse relationship with Him, they will naturally end up in a state of permanent separation from God and any form of perfection. I believe to grow in your relationship with God, you have to align yourself with His values. As you do this, He reveals Himself to you further. If you believe in God, what do you think He believes about the humanity of a fetus? If you don't believe in God, I don't expect a religious argument to persuade you, nor should it. The humanity of a fetus is self-evident to me completely apart from my religious beliefs, and I'm happy to expand on that if anyone would like me to. If anyone wants to ask me questions about Roe v. Wade or add comments to anything else I talked about, I'm happy to have you do that, and I'm happy to have a conversation. I can promise I'm not looking to paint anyone as the enemy or get on a high horse. I'm simply trying to act out of what I believe to be fundamentally true and good. Not based on some list of rules, but based on natural law, science, and conscience. And not just for me, but for all of humanity. And lastly, I have to say this because this is driving me insane. To everyone saying that pro-lifers only care about a baby before it's born, I know countless pro-lifers who have adopted multiple times over, who are involved in the foster system, who are involved with organizations that help foster kids settle into new homes and make sure they have clothes and toys, people that are involved in pregnancy centers that help single mothers and couples figure out how to have a kid in their current circumstances. Don't talk to me about what you don't know about. You don't want the baby to be born in the first place, so don't talk to me about what I want for them once they are born. It is deeply hurtful and insulting that my view is somehow invalid because of a false perception that I don't care what happens once the baby is born. That is simply false. Anyone who holds that view is not someone I would align myself with. Pro-life does not end at birth. It does not end. But this video does. Thanks for watching.